right now, I mean, millions of people are boarding flights, and they are absolutely terrified of being called the one thing they actually are, which is a tourist. Welcome to the deep dive.
It is the ultimate fear, right?
Oh, completely. Because usually when you pack for a trip, your biggest anxiety is just physical baggage. Like, will this suitcase fit in the overhead bin, or is it going to trigger some massive overweight fee at the counter?
Right, the usual stress.
Yeah, but over the last decade, I feel like the heaviest luggage we bring on vacation isn't actually filled with clothes anymore. It's filled with vocabulary.
Oh, that is a great way to put it.
Right, because travel used to just be defined by movement. You temporarily relocated, you looked at a different environment, and then you went home. But today, the simple act of going somewhere has been, well, it's basically been weaponized into this highly curated, carry-on approved personality profile. We use the words we choose to describe our trips as, like, a psychological shield.
We really do. And the transformation from a purely physical journey into this sociological performance is just stark. We're looking at a really brilliant synthesis of this phenomenon today. We're drawing from Roberta Hill's insights in her piece, Wander After 70.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating read.
It really is. Hill manages to capture how this semantic evolution of travel is, well, it's definitely not an accident. The words we attach to our movement, all these labels and categories, they actively dictate the reality of our experience. I mean, we are no longer just describing the world we see. We are attempting to broadcast who we are in relation to, everyone else on the planet.
Which means we're using vacation not to escape ourselves, like we claim to, but to relentlessly construct ourselves.
Exactly.
So to figure out how this works, we really have to start at the foundational level of any trip. Before you even post a photo of a sunset or complain about a flight delay online, you have to establish who you are traveling with.
The group dynamic.
Right. And if you look at travel marketing from even just 15 years ago, groups of people traveling together were basically universally referred to as communities.
Yeah, that was the standard buzzword.
And the concept of a community is really grounded. It implies that people are sharing a space or a geography, maybe a passing interest, but there's no overwhelming expectation of, like, ideological purity.
Well, because a community functions on proximity and tolerance, right?
Yeah.
But the modern internet ecosystem, it doesn't reward proximity at all. It demands really intense, high-stakes signaling. So the vocabulary just had to escalate.
Right.
The digital demand shifted from finding a community to discovering your quote-unquote tribe.
Oh, I hear that word everywhere now.
Everywhere. And the psychological mechanism behind replacing a word like community with a word like tribe is rooted entirely in the fear of being ordinary. Because a tribe implies exclusivity.
Yeah, it sounds ancient.
Exactly. It suggests this ancient, profound loyalty, this emotional bonding that, mere everyday tourists couldn't possibly understand. So when someone claims they are traveling with their tribe, they're signaling that this isn't just some regular group tour to Italy. It is a transformational gathering of souls who understand the universe on a higher frequency.
It's the ultimate unearned emotional weight. I mean, I look at this the exact same way I look at corporate jargon.
Oh, how so?
It's like, what happens when a middle manager decides that a completely standard, boring Tuesday afternoon budget meeting needs to be aggressively rebranded as a synergy summit?
A synergy summit.
Yes, right. Like, the underlying activity hasn't changed at all. We are still just looking at spreadsheets, but the language is desperately trying to inflate its importance. Why do we feel this need to pretend we've discovered profound authenticity just because we dress alike and repeat the same opinions to each other on a beach?
That is the exact irony Hill captures in her notes. And it's almost painful when you look at the physical reality of these modern digital travel tribes.
Right, because what are they actually doing?
Well, the disconnect between the semantic label and the actual physical behavior is massive.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, these self-proclaimed tribes are incredibly fractured. You have loosely affiliated individuals who maybe met on a forum. Ostensibly, they're traveling together, but they're spending large portions of their day sitting completely alone in separate Airbnbs.
Oh, wow. Just physically isolated.
Exactly, physically isolated, scrolling through the exact same social media algorithms on identical smartphones. So the tribe is essentially just an aesthetic illusion maintained for an audience back home.
But this need to curate an identity, it doesn't just isolate us into these digital tribes, it actually changes the physical biomechanics of the trips themselves. Because if establishing your tribe is like step one in generating social capital, step two requires you to prove that the things you're doing with that tribe are sufficiently profound.
Right, you have to validate the movement.
Yeah. A stroll to a local bakery is no longer enough to justify your presence in a foreign country. You have to weaponize your vocabulary just to justify taking a walk.
Which introduces this whole concept of semantic inflation. You can think of it exactly like economic inflation.
Okay, print too much money. It loses value.
Precisely. If a central bank prints too much money, the currency tanks. In travel culture, we have printed way too many aspirational words, and we've completely bankrupted the meaning of the vacation. Hill uses the distinction between walking and hiking to illustrate this perfectly.
Oh, this is such a good example.
Right, because walking is this accessible, fundamentally human activity. It implies moving at a reasonable pace, you're probably looking at architecture, and it usually culminates in a leisurely meal.
Exactly. I mean, I hear the word walking, and my brain instantly translates that to, okay, I can wear comfortable sneakers, I will not be sweating profusely, and there's a very high probability of a pastry in my near future.
But hiking carries a completely different, much heavier semantic load. Hiking implies a struggle against nature. It demands endurance, elevation changes, and, very strong opinions on merino wool technical fabrics.
Right, right. You need the gear.
Exactly. So by rebranding a walk as a hike, the traveler is actively purchasing status. And travel companies exploit this psychological vulnerability constantly.
Oh, they know exactly what they're doing.
They absolutely do. They'll take an itinerary that is effectively just a paved path through some gentle rolling countryside, and they will market it explicitly as a hike because the word hike allows the consumer to feel vaguely superior. They feel healthier and more adventurous than a regular tourist.
Meanwhile, the actual hikers,
Yes.
like the people navigating genuine wilderness and reading topographical maps, they look at these countryside strollers arriving in pristine, fresh-out-of-the-box boots with just deep, silent contempt.
Oh, the contempt is so real.
It's a linguistic arms race. I mean, we're running out of words to describe normal human behavior because every single action has to sound like a heroic endeavor. And you see this exact same inflation in the concept of solo travel.
Yes, solo travel has totally shifted.
Because historically, if you were a solo traveler, it meant precisely one thing. You were a single human being occupying a single seat on an airplane. It was just a logistical fact.
Yeah.
You bought one ticket.
And the transition of solo travel from that logistical reality into this grand narrative of self-actualization is just a fascinating study in modern anxiety. Today, claiming the title of a solo traveler is entirely designed to project bravery and healing.
Right, like you're on a quest.
Exactly. It suggests you've embarked on this solitary quest for reinvention, and it effectively casts you as the deeply complex main character in a documentary about your own life.
Wow.
The psychological shield here is crucial. By elevating solo travel to a profound spiritual journey, the traveler is preemptively defending themselves against the societal stigma of simply being alone.
Well, the reality, which Hill points out so sharply, is often just aggressively unromantic. I mean, a massive percentage of solo travelers are out there by themselves simply because, their spouse flat out refuses to endure a 9-hour flight. Or their friends couldn't get their PTO approved by HR.
Right, scheduling conflicts.
We are literally dressing up scheduling conflicts as profound journeys into the soul. And the moment we try to, slow down, we run into the exact same problem with the phrase slow travel.
Well, the original architecture of the slow travel concept was actually quite healthy. It was a reaction against that frantic checklist style of tourism.
Yeah.
The mechanism was straightforward. You stay in one location longer, move less frequently, and allow a destination to reveal itself gradually.
You build a rhythm.
Exactly. You were supposed to adapt to the rhythm of a place rather than forcing the place to adapt to your crazy itinerary.
But the semantic inflation took hold again, because now you observe people violently racing through 3 different European countries in under 6 days, entirely exhausted. But they will look you dead in the eye and aggressively defend their status as slow travelers.
Just because they spent an extra 45 minutes at brunch.
Yes, because they sat at a cafe debating the cultural significance of the local transit system. Which honestly brings us to the absolute pinnacle of travel anxiety. The word that haunts basically every single trip taken in the 21st century. Authentic.
Authentic. Yeah, authenticity is the holy grail of modern travel signaling.
Yeah.
Originally, an authentic experience referred to an unscripted interaction, right? It meant observing the ordinary, daily traditions of a culture without that filter of tourism hospitality.
Yeah.
But today, the word has been entirely gentrified. As Hill's analysis reveals, the modern traveler's definition of authentic usually involves paying a premium for a highly curated aesthetic.
Oh, absolutely.
It means buying a $6 espresso served on a reclaimed wood table, surrounded by exposed brick, usually in a neighborhood that used to be a working-class stronghold, before travel influencers mapped it and priced out all the original residents.
See, I really have to push back on the fundamental premise of this whole pursuit because the logic here just collapses on itself. This desperate hunt for the immersive local experience, isn't the entire concept just a massive interactive tourist fantasy?
It is entirely a fantasy.
Like, we use the word immersive to describe situations where tourists essentially LARP as locals. We pretend we're seamlessly blending into the fabric of a city. We demand local restaurants and local neighborhoods, but we talk about the actual local populations as if they're, I don't know, background extras hired to populate an artisanal documentary for our personal viewing pleasure.
The commodification of everyday life is exactly what drives this. The traveler desires the visual aesthetic of local life, but without any of the friction. None of the mundane realities or socioeconomic struggles that actually define that life.
Because the genuine, unfiltered reality of a local living in Paris or Rome or Kyoto is entirely unappealing to a tourist. Real locals are eating fast food because they're tired after a 10-hour shift. They're silently panicking about their rent increasing. They're packed into overcrowded commuter trains. And critically, they are actively, intentionally avoiding the picturesque, cobblestone historical centers that tourists treat as the real city.
Oh, absolutely.
A local living in Paris might not have walked past the Eiffel Tower in 12 years. A Montrealer might only ever set foot in Old Montreal under extreme duress when there are extended family visits from out of town.
Exactly. And the friction occurs because acknowledging that mundane reality shatters the illusion the traveler has paid so much money to construct. I mean, why do we ignore the truth right in front of us? Because accepting that locals live ordinary, stressful lives means accepting that our vacation is just a brief, artificial pause in our own ordinary, stressful lives.
That is so true.
And this desperation to locate a mythical, cinematic version of authenticity and the sheer terror of being perceived as just another regular tourist consuming a packaged product, it reveals the underlying architecture of travel culture. It's a massive, incredibly rigid ladder of judgment.
Yes. Think about the last time you were sitting at your gate in an airport terminal. You've probably looked over at a family dragging 3 massive, overstuffed, brightly colored roller bags, and you felt this tiny, unmistakable flicker of superiority because you managed to pack everything into a sleek, matte black carry-on.
We've all done it.
Right, that flicker. That is the secret hierarchy of travel in action. It is an unspoken caste system based entirely on semantic differentiation.
And the sociology of this ladder is driven by what Freud called the narcissism of small differences.
Oh, explain that.
Well, it basically means we are most critical of those who are only slightly different from us. So in the travel ecosystem, this translates to a cascading system of condescension.
Okay, how does that play out?
Take the luxury traveler, enjoying a highly structured, premium guided tour. They look at the budget backpacker and assess their behavior as just performative, like a willingness to suffer simply to prove a point about ruggedness.
And meanwhile, that exact same backpacker, who is probably sleeping on a terrible mattress in a train station, is looking right back up at the luxury traveler, entirely dismissing them as sheltered, superficial, and woefully disconnected from the real world they claim to be visiting.
Precisely. And the fragmentation continues endlessly down the line.
Yeah.
The individual working from a cafe in Bali calls themselves a digital nomad, utilizing that specific term as a shield to insist they are fundamentally different from a tourist who simply brought a laptop on vacation.
Right.
And the expat fiercely defends their title to differentiate themselves from the political and economic implications of being an immigrant.
The mechanism here is brilliant, but it is exhausting. Everybody is just shifting themselves semantically one single rung up from the person they secretly judge. It is the exact same psychological maneuvering as high school cliques.
It really is.
You know, like you have the athletes, the theater kids, and the math club in high school. But in international terminals, you have the minimalists, the ethical travelers, and the slow travel nomads. And the driving force behind all of this frantic categorization is absolute terror. Everyone is terrified of being caught at the very bottom of the social ladder.
Which is?
In this ecosystem, the bottom of the ladder is the dreaded, unhyphenated tourist.
Yes, and the acceleration of this anxiety is entirely tied to the broadcast mechanism of social media. Historically, A vacation was a private experience. You lived it, you returned home, and, maybe you subjected a few close friends to a physical photo album.
A slide projector if they were really unlucky.
Right. But today, the journey is narrated in real time to an audience of hundreds or thousands of people. So the pressure isn't just to navigate a foreign transit system. The pressure is to continuously package your experience into a coherent brand identity. The traveler is forced to pick their character class before the plane even pushes back from the gate.
Are you the rugged anti-tourist? Are you the sleek, hyper-efficient, carry-on minimalist? The deeply conscious, ethical traveler? The mental bandwidth required to maintain that specific brand while simultaneously trying to figure out how to order a sandwich in a language you don't speak? It's just staggering.
Yeah, it is a lot of work.
It makes you wonder, does this exhaustion ever break? Do we ever just outgrow the need for these semantic gymnastics, or are we doomed to spend the rest of our lives silently judging people's luggage choices?
Well, the liberating answer to that question is found right in the core of Roberta Hill's observations regarding the impact of age. Time actually acts as the ultimate solvent for this semantic anxiety.
Really? How so?
The vocabulary of travel and the rigid definitions we attach to it, they are highly dependent on our stage of life. Younger travelers operate under a very specific psychological assumption: the illusion of infinite time,
Okay.
because time feels endless to them. Their emotional dictionary defines concepts like adventure strictly through the lens of intensity.
Right. If you are 24 years old, finding yourself trapped on a 14-hour, aggressively un-air-conditioned overnight bus winding through mountain roads, that isn't viewed as a catastrophic logistical failure. It is the very currency of an adventure.
The discomfort is the point.
Exactly. Surviving a highly questionable hostile mattress is a badge of honor because it provides a story that sounds slightly perilous in retrospect.
But the shift happens as the physical and temporal realities of aging begin to dismantle that dictionary. For older travelers, the mechanism of adventure changes completely. The definition of a successful journey pivots away from risk and intensity, moving deliberately toward pacing, sustainability, and energy management.
That makes total sense.
Right. Adventure might simply mean possessing the audacity to take the trip at all, despite very real health anxieties, mobility concerns, or financial constraints. It is the act of continuing to move through the world with the profound, inescapable awareness that time is no longer infinite.
I want you to think about how your own internal definitions have shifted. Think about what you considered an exhausting itinerary 5 years ago versus today. Think about what you currently define as worth it. You start to realize that when people argue about the quote-unquote right way to travel online, they aren't actually debating the merits of the destination at all.
No, not at all.
A 20-year-old and a 70-year-old are clashing because they are fiercely defending the completely different emotional dictionaries they use to process the world.
And Hill's perspective as a traveler in her 70s highlights this perfectly. At her stage of life, successfully navigating a chaotic international airport with minimal stress and arriving at a hotel feeling relatively intact, that qualifies as a profound success.
Oh yeah, that's a huge win.
But younger travelers, who are still locked in that intensity mindset, they might dismiss that as prioritizing comfort over experience. But the older traveler recognizes that comfort is what facilitates the experience. Booking a direct premium flight at age 70 isn't a surrender of the adventurous spirit. It is the application of pure, hard-earned wisdom.
The friction entirely evaporates once you recognize that these emotional definitions are completely subjective. If we understand that the backpacker and the luxury cruiser are just operating from different dictionaries, the entire architecture of the secret travel hierarchy just collapses. We can stop performing these exhausting purity tests.
That realization is exactly what allows us to dismantle the moral superiority that frequently accompanies modern travel. I mean, the obsession with proving that you are interacting with a foreign country in the correct or authentic manner is almost always a projection of deep-seated insecurities regarding your own identity.
Which really brings us to the ultimate synthesis of this deep dive. We have to let go of the bizarre arrogance that comes dressed up in expensive, moisture-wicking outdoor clothing.
Yes, please.
A traveler standing on the private balcony of a massive cruise ship, looking at the fjords of Norway for the first time, is experiencing genuine, breathtaking wonder. The college student sleeping on a tremendously uncomfortable bench in a German train station is traveling. The retired couple who rents the exact same small apartment in Lisbon for 2 months every single spring, they are traveling.
And crucially, the family who returns to the exact same all-inclusive resort in Florida, staying in the exact same room, eating at the exact same buffet every single winter, they are traveling too.
Exactly.
The validity of their movement is not dependent on the approval of an internet algorithm or the semantic blessing of some self-appointed travel purist.
We have overcomplicated the fundamental joy of leaving our houses. We need to strip away the hashtags, the relentless personal branding, and the desperate, crushing need for an audience to validate our movement. If we peel back the layers of semantic inflation, travel returns to something beautifully simple.
It really does.
It is about movement. It is about deploying a little bit of genuine curiosity. It is about quiet observation. And honestly, it is about appreciating a really decent hotel pillow after a long day. The rest of the noise is just marketing, designed to sell you an identity you already possess.
It is a profoundly liberating concept.
Yeah.
Freeing yourself from the burden of constant narration.
Yeah.
The moment you stop trying to translate your physical experience into digital capital, the world actually becomes immersive,
Yeah.
which leaves us with a necessary and perhaps uncomfortable mechanism to test our own motivations. Think about this. If the broadcast infrastructure of social media were to permanently, irreversibly disappear tomorrow morning,
Oh, wow.
if you suddenly possessed absolutely no method to narrate, label, validate, or display your upcoming trip to a single person on Earth, how would your itinerary change?
That is a great question.
Would your internal definition of an authentic adventure suddenly look very different? Would you still dedicate hours to seeking out a tribe, or would you finally grant yourself the permission to just go somewhere, drop the heavy vocabulary, and simply have a nice time?
That is the exact question you need to ask yourself the next time you pull your suitcase out of the closet. Pay attention to the labels you are packing alongside your shoes. Whether you are embarking on a deeply technical hike through the mountains or just taking a very pleasant, completely ordinary walk to grab a pastry for lunch, think about exactly who you are traveling for. Until next time, keep exploring.